Welcome to the House Committee on Local Government. This is the first meeting for the 2023-2024 biennium. And I want to say welcome to those any online today and remind you that if you're not able to come to a meeting that you want to be a part of, or at least to listen to, please know that you should be able to see online the entire meeting and go back and reference it as well. I'm excited to invite and receive a number of new members to the House that are also now new members to this committee. I stepped aside for 2 years into another committee that was in a conflicting time, and now as chair, I'm looking forward to getting to see what we can get done. And I will begin the meeting by seeing if there's any bills that would like to be anybody has to present to committee from the gallery. Any proposed bills that they want to present? Not seeing any. Would like to move directly to opportunities to get to know you as a committee, and then we'll go on to staff. So I would just start. I'll start with Representative Gardner, and if you would go around and if you can tell a little bit, see if you chose this committee, and if you did, why, and what you hope to see happen, and who you represent.
I'm a Representative Fred Gardner from Garnett. And I represent the 9th district. I am a veterinarian by trade, and I have always worked with people in our local government in Anderson County, but I really don't have a lot of experience in that.
Sure.
I'm Lynn Melton, and I represent District 36, Kathy Wolfmore's old position before she retired. And I have a long 30-plus year background in the mortgage industry, and recently 4-year background in local government. So I'm just anxious to find out where the money is and what we can do to help our local communities.
Thank you, ma'am. Representative Miller.
Oh, I'm Dennis Moore. I'm out of Olathe in District 14, and I've lived there for about 45 years. And I've noticed how their government seems to, or our local government there seems to run pretty efficiently. And before I came to the Capitol House, or the Capitol here, I had a meeting with the local people, and they gave me a list of demands. So I decided this would be a fun committee to be on, and they want the money but no oversight. So we'll see how that works.
Representative
Amos. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Mike Amix. I represent the 45th district, which is in Lawrence and Douglas County. I have both the western side of Lawrence, and I have the city of Lecompton, which territorial capital of the great state of Kansas. So it's a real privilege for me to be able to represent that. I did request local government. My background is starting in 1983, I became an elected official in the city of Lawrence. And I think I've spent my entire adult life being an elected official, because I was with the city of Lawrence, a whole bunch of terms. I was mayor there for a long time. I was Douglas County Commission Chairman, and now I'm with the State House starting my 3rd term. So 45th District's a lot of fun. I love local government. I like to see them getting a fair shake and do what I can to help. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll move over to Representative Essex and come down.
Good morning. Robin Essex. I represent Olathe, District 78. So that's former Speaker Reichman's seat. I got big shoes to fill in. When I'm not here, I'm actually serving on the Olathe City Council. I did ask for this local government committee. I think it gives us a unique perspective to be involved in both. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Representative Carrie Barth. I am in District 5, which makes up 4 different counties. I live in Douglas County. I also represent Johnson County, Miami County, and portions of Franklin County as well. I did not request to be on local government. It requested me. I have been way more involved than I want to be in local government. That means there's problems and people reaching out to me that have things that are going on in my district. And the more that I don't have to deal with local government, the better off would be. So I'm here to help in whatever way I can. And I do represent the people of my district.
Representative Bloom.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Louis Bloom. I'm represent District 64, which is Clay, Dickinson, Riley, and Cloud. I represent small towns and communities, and I want to find a way to keep it thriving. I did request this because I think that we can get.
Thank you, sir. Representative Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Representative Ken Collins. I represent the 2nd District, which is parts of Crawford and Neosho counties. And I have a pretty extensive background in local government. I've been city council member in Mulberry, which is where I grew up and where I live now. And I was also on the city council in Edgerton, where I live there, which is in Representative Barth's area now. And so I could give you some pointers on dealing with the people there. All right. Yeah. Well, Mayor Roberts is a good guy. He, if you ever run across him. But anyway, like I said, I really enjoy local government, dealing with cities and counties, and both when I was on city council and now, I've just really found that the League of Kansas Municipalities is a good resource. We deal with them quite a bit in this committee, and they have. I've been to quite a bit of their training when I was on the city councils, and that is a good source for city officials. And I know a lot of them don't like to do the training. They say it's too expensive and all, but it's worth it, and especially if they happen to be teaching something in your area, have something going on in your area, it's worth making a short trip. And of course, they do some things online now, which makes it a lot easier for some people to access. And with that, I'll just like to welcome everyone, all the new members.
Thank you, Representative Collins. And now our ranking minority member, Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Linda Featherston. I represent the 16th District in Overland Park. So that's from the mall to the community college and now down to the KU Edwards campus. I was on this committee last year and I'm happy to be back here this year.
Representative Blex, Vice Chair.
Welcome, committee. It is an enjoyable committee. My name is Doug Blex, and I live west of Coffeyville, south of Independence, on the family farm. I'm a retired wildlife biologist for the state of Kansas, 30 years almost, and I still farm and run cattle on the side, and usually hurry home on Thursday night to put bales out to my hungry cows after I put them out Sunday. So I enjoy this committee, and this is my 2nd year on it. We'll be coming into the 3rd, and a lot of things that we don't realize. We all get a lot of complaints. Probably our biggest complaint is property taxes, and we deal with some of that here, but yet it's good to hear from people on their other side as to why some of the property taxes are as high as they are. And I appreciate the information we get here, and it's an honor to be on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you all. You all have a vested interest in local government and the places where you live, whether it's county or in actually living in a city. I joined this committee back in my 2nd year, I think in 19, and I was on it for a couple of years. My choice, it was one of my choices. I spent from 1995 to generally to 2013 in city government, either as mayor or city council in Park City. and small town compared to some of the bigger metropolitan areas, but some of the issues are the same, and the people, when they come to speak, are the same, no matter what level you're at. There's an individual time for each person to come to speak at a meeting like this for the very first time. And we have the privilege of having a model similar to what the city council is. Our committee process is a deliberative process. It's a little bit of a jury to jury the issue, not jury the person or to judge a person, but to actually judge an issue and weigh it so that we can make recommendations to someone else. And that means that microphone there, whether it's an expert from the county or the cities, or whether it's an individual in a small town that has a problem with ordinances and wants to see the state do something about it, whether it's financial or whether it's just simply policy. We have a neat privilege to be able to see the model of what civil government is and get the privilege of evaluating things to bring a recommendation to the whole body who may not get to deliberate it very long. 26 or so committees that you all are some part of have to concentrate on those things. We get to concentrate on maybe just a few issues this year, depending on how many are brought to us. But feel free to the issues that are important to you. If you know people that have been wanting to get things taken care of, it's a real policy issue. This is the place for it, and this is the place for the discussion. So it's a privilege to get to be a chair, simply because there's a line from here to that podium, and it says, "We're here to listen to you." And hopefully we'll have that opportunity today to listen to the counties and then later the cities in next week's presentation. But in the meantime, know that although you may not hear many bills brewing, that's because maybe not many bills have been brought forth. And there are a few that are already in the works that will probably be presented in the coming days. So enjoy the process. It's don't take yourself too seriously, and don't take your job too lightly, because we're important for the people. And we are all on broadcast on the internet. So remember, everything you say, will be heard. Yeah. And sometimes the microphones are on when they're not supposed to be. So always think of the microphones being on. So, hey, and if you do have your phone go off, whatever kind of treats you want to bring, it's kind of a tradition of this whole building to kind of train our mindset. Yeah. There you go. And mine went off about 15 minutes before, so I didn't have to deal with it. So now I would like to have introductions from the staff that are here. These are our supporting staff. Most of you have been anybody not been in a committee yet this biennium. So far, you've shown up at least one committee. So the staff is here for revisers and research and our assistant. So if we would start up here at the front, and we'll go ahead and if you take the microphone and introduce yourself and what you do.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jillian Block. I'm with Legislative Research. This is my first session. Actually, I'm very excited to get started. I will also be working on the Senate Local Government Committee, so I look forward to quickly becoming an expert in this area.
Good morning. My name is Matthew Willis. I'm a senior research analyst with Legislative Research. This is my fourth session, and this is my third session on this committee.
Hi, I'm Deb Heidemann. Brand new, first time working as a committee assistant. My background is mostly corporate for 20 years and then a business owner for 10. Tried to retire, lasted 5 minutes. So when I'm not here, I'm a newborn hearing screener up at Stormont Vale, and I'm very excited. Thanks.
Thank you.
Uh, Jason Long, Senior Assistant Revisor. This is my 17th session and my third staffing local government. And our office is responsible for bill drafts and amendments in the committee on the floor. So if you have any legal questions or need any legal assistance with the work of this committee, myself and Charles are the ones to come to.
And if you would keep the microphone just long enough to tell the committee if they want to see a bill draft given, how do they contact you?
Oh, they can either they can contact our front desk and they will direct your phone call to me, or you can contact me directly down in my office down in 24 East in the building, or you can email myself or Charles if you have any questions or a request for a bill.
Charles Reimer with the Revisor's Office.
I'm Trevor, and I'm part of the broadcast team.
Radio. That's good. All right, we will move on to our main item on the agenda today, and that is the presentation by the Kansas Association of Counties. We have a couple of state organizations that help us to see a bigger picture of what cities and counties want and what they need and what their structure is. So today we're going to start with Bruce
Gladney.
Okay.
Yes.
And he is Executive Director of the Kansas Association of Counties, and you're on. If your microphone is on.
Yes, sir, it is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good morning, Chairman. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to be here. On behalf of myself and my colleague, Mr. Jay Hall, who's our Deputy Director and Legislative Policy Assistant and General Counsel for the KAC, you're going to hear from him in just a minute or two. We'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come before you today on this inaugural day to get the session started right out of the chute, to allow us to share our story about local government from the county perspective, and also to basically become that resource for you all. As you went around the room, it was interesting to hear your local government experience. I didn't hear anybody said they were a former county commissioner. So hopefully after this session, maybe you'll be future county commissioners. I guess Mr. Representative Amix was at one point before my time. I served a little bit of time in Douglas County at the extension system there with Craig Cox with the folks that were there in Douglas County many years ago. So before your time, I believe. So with that, we're going to get started. We've got a PowerPoint presentation that we're going to share with you. Hopefully we can get that pulled up. We don't have the actual presentation, just to hand out. Okay, that'll work. We can go from there. So we're going to divide this up into 3 different sessions. We've got to look at who the KAC is, responsibilities of county government, and then some of the county priorities. So we're going to get started. So a look at who the KAC is and who we are. I know that the League of Kansas Municipalities was brought up already before, so we're kind of a relation to them in a way that we represent counties. We are provided for by state statute, and I think we need to go to the next page to have that pop up. Yeah, there we go. So we are provided for by state statutes. We started in January of 1976, and we've been around for many years. Our office has kind of bounced around from place to place. We used to be actually for a number of years right across the street on the 3rd floor of the League building. About 3 years ago, we did move. We went a little bit further west. We're now in the KNEA building, which is right across the street from Topeka High School. There's 6 of us there in the office. We're not a very large office at all. 5 of them are actually 5 of us are employed by the Kansas Association of Counties. The 6th individual is a joint appointment with a partnership with KDOT. So KDOT asked that if we would be interested in providing technical assistance to our roads superintendents across the state. And so we have an agreement that we have a private contractor that the counties pay a fee for the service, and then KDOT matches that fee, and we're able to provide expert resource in the name, Keith Browning is the gentleman's name, and he travels the state providing expert information to our road system superintendents. Our budget for this year is not a very large budget, but we are $1.051 million. Half of that comes from membership dues from our members. The other half comes from sponsorships, registrations, grants, fees, things like that. We do have a large number of commercial organizations that want to market to our members, and so they go through us to pay sponsorships to have their name put on materials and things like that, especially around the conferences and whatnot. So we do have a great working relationship with businesses as well. All right. Did we lose the presentation? Oh, okay. Should I wait or keep going? I've got it right here. All right. Oh, there it is. He pulled it up. Perfect. If you want to go back a couple of more slides. There we go. Perfect. That's exactly what we need right there. Thank you. So look at some of our responsibilities. Okay, and this is laid out for in the law, and we are to represent and advocate the interest of local Kansas counties. And so that's exactly what Jay and I are here to do. We are an educational resource for you all. We advocate on behalf of Kansas counties, and we look forward to working with you. If you have questions or concerns, how is a piece of legislation going to impact a county government? Please don't hesitate to reach out to us, okay? I know I heard several of you say that maybe we don't have a lot of stuff going on in this particular committee. However, it's interesting, you'll find that a lot of the bills that do flow through the system here do impact counties in some way, shape, or form. They may not just come through this committee to be that aware. So just know that that may happen. We're also tasked with strengthening the role of counties in the intergovernmental system. And then we're also to promote responsible, efficient, and effective local government. You know, governments definitely operate independent of each other. And so our goal and our task is to make sure that they're operating efficiently and give them the resources and the education that they need to do that. And we also provide research and technical assistance to our members, as well as our affiliate and associate organizations. And I'll talk about those two in just a second here. And we're also to provide continuing education to all our members through publications, workshops, and educational resources. So one of the major tasks that Jay spends a lot of time doing in the off season is doing KOMA, Kansas Open Meetings Act classes, as well as KORA classes, Kansas Open Records Act. So we continuously get requests from local governments to provide those educational programs so that our clerks and our commissioners and any of the other elected officials are following the law and not getting themselves into any trouble. Starting tomorrow, we actually have almost 45 new county commissioners coming to Topeka for new commissioner orientation. We'll be down at the in the hotel here, and we'll be for the next 2 days basically walking them through their roles and responsibilities as county commissioners. So we try to raise an awareness on what their tasks are and what they're supposed to be doing, and so that they can do their jobs efficiently. We also offer budgeting classes, we offer leadership training, and then we also maintain a desk book. So it's a technical resource that our county members can access. It's 290 pages of how a county should be run. And so if somebody has a question or a comment on how do they do something, we direct them towards our desk book, and they can pull that out and look and see what's the proper way of handling the situation. Also, I just want to call attention to, mark your calendars. So we are going to be hosting Local Government Day. That'll be on January the 25th. So we actually will invite our members to come up to the Capitol, and they'll be visiting with you all, and we'll do a little educational programming with them. We'll talk about how to advocate on behalf of themselves and how to tell their story. And then we'll ask that they come over here and visit with you folks and just kind of give you the information that they need to be that you need to hear about what's going on back in your own community. And then on top of that, on February the 9th, you're going to see us in the second floor rotunda for what we're calling County Day at the Capitol. This will be our second time doing it. Last year was the first time, and we had real good success. but we are going to try to fill the rotunda again with all things county government, just to raise an awareness of how big and how important local government is to the state of Kansas. And then finally, the month of April, we'll have designated as County Government Month. Again, the governor last year created a proclamation claiming April as local county government month, and hopefully we will get that done again this year. So, next slide. Perfect. All right. Nope, you got it. I'm sorry. Go back to where you were. You were perfect. Yes. Currently, we have 102 counties as our members, and the question always becomes, what are the 3 counties that are not? Currently, Harper, Chautauqua, and Cherokee counties are not our members. We are not mandatory to be a part of the organization. We are voluntary, nor are we regulatory. So we can't make counties do anything. They can only come to us and ask us for technical assistance and help if something's going wrong. So it's an important distinction to know. Nope. Next slide. Perfect. All right. So as members of our association, we have 11 state professional associations at what we call the affiliate membership level. And so an affiliate member has a seat on our governing board. Our governing board is 19 members big. 6 of those seats come from the Kansas County Commissioner Association, the KCCA. Mike Taylor, who represents the KCCA, is here today, and you'll see him in the halls this legislative session. Last year was the first year that the County Commissioner Association employed his services to advocate on behalf of them. They have 6 seats, 1 for each of the KDOT highway districts across the state. The County Councilors Association is a member. The Association of Local Health Departments, or CALD, we actually share space with them, so we're in close contact with those folks. Kansas County Clerks and Election Officials Association, the Highway Association, Appraisers, Emergency Medical Services, Emergency Management, Weed Directors, which actually Kenny Backus, who is the Weed Director for Ottawa County, is our board chair and president currently. After the monthly meeting here in a couple of weeks, he will no longer be our board chair and president. We'll elect a new one. But he is a weed director from Ottawa County Register of Deeds. And then also this year, we actually added the Human Resource Association. So they came on as an affiliate member, and they have a board position, which has been a great asset to us. So the rest of the board, we have a NACO, which is a National Association of Counties representative. And so we do have a national organization that we work with. NACO represents all things counties on the federal level. We do it here at the state level. And then we also have an urban county representative, a rural county representative, and that makes up the 19 members total. Next slide, please. And then we also have 4 associate members, and those organizations are the planning and zoning officials, sheriff's association, mental health centers, and the county administrators. They do not have a seat on our board. However, they are part of the legislative process. So they help us develop the legislative policy, which you all have been provided a copy today. So you'll see what our legislative policy is for 2023. Now, keep in mind that these professional associations, they have regular meetings, and we get to attend those, and they're constantly doing the CEUs, or their continuing educations, and they are all educational resources for themselves. So what I'm trying to get at is that all of these county associations and all of these county employees, a lot of them are part of these professional associations and are continuously trying to improve themselves and do the work that they do better, and also try to do the system better, make the system better by cooperating with each other across county lines. All right, next slide, please. So we're going to shift gears real quick and talk about the responsibilities of local government. Unless there's any questions, I'd be happy to pause before we jump into changing gears. Okay. So we'll talk about real quickly about the responsibilities of local government and what we're responsible for doing. Okay. Next slide, please. So the three major components of what we do can be basically tucked under these 3 bullet points. We serve as the administrative arm for state government. We provide state mandated services, and we also provide locally determined services. So first of those is, we already talked about it, tax collection. And we all know that taxes are a big issue. We've already heard it mentioned several times in the committee, and we're only 20 minutes into the day. But the counties are responsible for collecting the personal and real property taxes across the state. And so with over 4,000 taxing entities throughout the state, there's a lot of taxes that get collected. And so, however, the one thing that people don't realize is that counties only keep a small portion of what they collect. Next slide, please. And as you can see on our handout, this is the state average for 2021. This is where, when counties collected all the funds and resources that they collected, this is where those funds went and how they got divvied up. This is on the Kansas Department of Revenue's website. You can go there yourself and you can actually choose your own county and open up the list, and you'll get a document that looks just like this that will show you where all of your county tax dollars that were collected and how they got divided up amongst all of the taxing authorities in your county or in your legislative area. What you'll see is that across the state, the counties kept roughly $1.563 billion of all the funds that they collected, which actually is only 28.76%. So the remaining 72, 73% of those tax dollars went to all of the other taxing authorities, taxing districts across the state. For an example, Johnson County, we're just going to throw this out. Johnson County, their mill levy was 117 mills. And the government, the Johnson County government, though, they only kept 15.3% of that. And the cities in Johnson County kept 16%. And the USDs got 48%. And then the remaining went to all the other taxing districts across the county. So the average mill across the state is 133.046. With the biggest mill, the highest mill is in Stanton County at 241.878 mills. And the lowest mill is Coffee County, which is at 91.030 mills. So there's a wide diversity of mills, which is how that money is collected. Next slide, please. Our next administrative duty is property valuation. So we are responsible for valuing all the property across the state. We do have appraisers that service every county in the state of Kansas, and those are hired by commissioners or appointed by commissioners for 4-year contracts. And they work very closely with the Department of Valuation, the division in the Department of Revenue, so PVD. They work very closely, and all of the work that they do is monitored and checked and double checked at the state level. Okay, next slide. Also, we administer the election process. So when it comes to elections, the county clerk usually oversees the election process, and that is an elected position. And they are usually responsible for securing the polling sites, for purchasing and the maintaining of all the election equipment, the recruiting, the training, and the paying for poll workers, and then also for canvassing the vote. So that all those responsibilities fall upon the local county governments. Next slide. Also, the local county government, usually in the clerk's office, is responsible for issuing licenses and permits. Driver's license, building permits, hunting, fishing license, marriage license, those types of things. Those all come from the county clerk's office or some other office within their local county government. And just as an example, I reached out to the Harvey County Clerk, Rick Pyfo. You'll probably hear his name and see him give some testimony. He's very active in the legislative process. And in his office, they are responsible for giving out the fish and game licenses and the permits for hunting and fishing. And they get to keep $1 for every one of those transactions, regardless of the amount of money that transaction cost. And then they also are responsible for boat registrations in the county and they get to keep $1 for that transaction as well. And then they also are responsible for candidate filings, and they collect and remit to the state the $50 ethics fees for each candidate filing. But then they get to keep any other additional filing fees at the county level. So they are responsible for doing that on the state's behalf. Okay, next slide. We also are responsible for maintaining the land records, the Register of Deeds, which is an elected position. We house them and give them all the tools and the resources that they need to do their job. And they're responsible for registering all land purchases, for maintaining all deeds of records, recording all oil and gas leases, as well as maintaining the county maps. Usually they're found in the courthouse. And like I said, they are an elected position. Okay. Right. And then we have also the next that we are responsible for at the local county level. We are responsible for the judiciary process. So we provide the facilities and the equipment. So the judges and the staff are paid for and hired for and appointed by the state. However, the county is responsible for giving them all things physical: the courtroom that they're in, the equipment that they use, the chair that they sit in, the bench that they judge behind, all of the support staff that keeps the place clean, the sentry at the front door, those types of things. That all comes at cost of the county government. Okay. Next slide. You're also responsible for prosecution, the county and or district attorneys. Now that is all the county responsibility. That's an elected position, and they do have a budget that comes from the county government. So the county commissioners approve their budget, and then they operate within that budget, and they oversee their own processes, but all of that money comes from local county government. Okay, continuing on with the state mandated services. Okay, we have public health services. So local county government by statute, and I have them all listed there, is responsible for all those items: disease investigation, quarantines, rabies control, STDs, school inspections, immunizations, water quality issues. There's a statute that lays out their county's responsibility in each one of those areas. Okay. Next slide, please. Mental health services. We're also responsible for providing mental health services at the local level. And so we're responsible for contracting with a behavioral health provider. We're also responsible for transporting patients in need of care through our EMS, emergency management system, medical services system. And then we also house folks in our jails, those that are awaiting treatments and need to get to a treatment center, or who have violated laws. We have to house them in our local jails. So we are responsible for doing that. Okay. Next, emergency management. If you're not familiar with our emergency managers, we have one of those in every county across the state, and they are all things first responders. So hail, fire, tornado, windstorm, blizzards, deluge of rain, you name the cause, and our emergency managers spring into action. Brian Stone, who was our emergency manager for Cowley County, recently retired after 31 years in Cowley County. And I asked him, what's he going to do? What's he going to enjoy most about being retired? And he said, not being on call 24/7. So, and that basically tells the life of an emergency manager. They're on call 24/7 because you never know when a disaster is going to strike. They work closely with the KDAM, Kansas Department of Emergency Managers, as well as they work very closely with each other. Okay. Next slide, please. So we also are responsible for solid waste planning. And so some counties have landfills. Other counties have to make arrangements to get to the trash to the landfills. I know that that's one of the issues that our counties talk a lot about: tipping fees and making sure that they have the employees at the landfills to make sure that the landfill is operating properly. I hear landfill talk come up quite often across the state. So that is one of the responsibilities that we have. Next slide, please. We also are responsible for law enforcement. And so law enforcement in jails, 94 counties across the state of Kansas have a jail. 11 of those do not. And so the population range of the counties without jails is 1,689 folks. That's the smallest, up to 5,653 population. So the folks that don't have jails are usually our smaller counties that can't afford, and so they have to cooperate or farm out their prisoners to local counties in the neighborhood. So, just in case you're interested, the counties that are not operating their own jail: Cheyenne, Comanche, Edwards, Gove, Gray, Hodgman, Lane, Logan, Rush, Stafford, and Wichita County. So those folks don't have their own jails. Okay. Next slide, please. Noxious weeds. As I said, Kenny Backus, who is the noxious weed director in Ottawa County, he's on our board. Kansas actually first passed its noxious weed law back in 1895. So Kansas has been worried about noxious weeds for a very long time. Russian thistle and Canada thistle were supposed to be controlled by law. And then the current law that we operate under right now was actually passed in 1937. And it was designed to control field bindweed. That was the major issue weed at the time. And so then in 1974, the federal noxious weed law went into effect, prohibiting the interstate spread of such plants. And so we operate under a federal law as well. So noxious weeds are taken serious in the state of Kansas, and by law, our noxious weed directors have to survey the land to report the amount of noxious weeds that are found across the state, and then also they're responsible for controlling them on the public rights of ways and county-owned lands. So the noxious weed law. And then last but not least, we also partner, as I said before, with KDOT, Kansas Department of Transportation. Our county roads, our counties are responsible for maintaining 80% of the 140,000 center lane miles of public roads across the state of Kansas. And we're also responsible for maintaining 75% of the 25,000 bridges found across the state. So the next slide kind of lays that out. So as you'll see in that chart, in that graph, that's the total center lane miles that counties are responsible for is about 113,000 miles, of which 13% are paved, 80% of those are not paved, and they carry about 15% of the traffic around the state. So cities and state has the remaining balance. But as you can see, the counties share really carry the burden of maintaining our local road system by far. And so we do work quite closely with KDOT, Secretary Lorenz, who has now since resigned, and we're hoping to find a new Secretary of Transportation who is equally dedicated to making sure that counties are represented when it comes to making major decisions about the road system across the state of Kansas. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jay. Oh, I have one more. Do I have one more slide?
And if after that, if you would stand for questions, if anybody has.
Most definitely.
Up to this point.
Very good.
Thank you.
All righty. And then also we got the list of these other locally determined services. I apologize for just skipping over that. So these are services that local citizens have decided, yes, we want to invest our dollars locally. So these are not mandated, but this is what we want. Hospitals, medical services, cultural and leisure services like parks and zoos, economic development, planning and zoning, airports, and utilities.
Does any of the committee have any questions for Mr. Gladney?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Barth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Barth here. Thank you so much for the overview of everything. You mentioned there are a few different counties that do not subscribe to the membership, and you said who those were. Can I have a reason like why they're not participating? I'm sure they probably have provided some feedback as to why they don't participate. And then the second part of my question is, what are the membership fees or dues? Are they annual? Are they, never ending? Or can you give me a little bit of review on that as well, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to answer. So the 3 counties that have chosen not to be members, the feedback that we received is that we just were not a priority. They feel like the benefits that they would receive from us don't outweigh the cost of being a member. And so we've worked with them. And in fact, we visited with them to try to get a better handle on what services they'd like us to provide, and they really don't have a list of things that, well, we need to have this, this, and this in order to become a member. As far as the fees are concerned, it's a little bit of a tricky formula that we use, but we basically take our entire budget and then divide it out and try to spread it across our members. And so there's a $500 flat fee that everybody pays. And then the remaining dollars are split in half, 50% based on population and 50% based on valuation in the county. And so then no county will pay more than about $16,100 in annual fees. And then each county, according to size, goes down from there. And we have about 5 counties that are paying the maximum of just over $16,000. And then the rest go down from there. So that's how our fee structure is set. Every year when a county gets a bill from us, it could be different based on what their population and what their valuation did from year to year.
Thank you. Sir, any other questions before we go to? Yes. Representative Gardner.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Berquist. Can you tell me if the county weed department has any authority or control over noxious weeds in their county that are along state highways or in state parks or in Corps of Engineer land around reservoirs?
That is a very good question. And Jay, you know off the top of your head?
So I know that they are able to.
Sir, if you'd go ahead and give your name.
Jay Hall, Deputy Director for the Kansas Association of Counties. So they are responsible for the ones along the roadways. I am not sure about Corps of Engineers land. I need to double check that.
Very good question. You're right, because I know that does come up. There's rights of ways that are owned by the state, and I don't know. I'll have to check with our weed director to find out if he's responsible for maintaining that. I do know that they contract out some of those services, and I do know I've heard them talk about making sure that they have those in place as the growing season gets going, that those contracts are in place.
I'll recognize Representative Blex.
Having a lot of years of experience with the state and Corps of Engineers, the Corps of Engineers are not required by that statute to control, and they supersede the state. However, licensed land, like to Wildlife and Parks land that they license to, they do honor that requirement of control of noxious weeds on their lands. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we'll go on to the next conferee.
Pick the slideshow back up.
And each time you come to the mic, if you go ahead and state your name and your position.
And again, Jay Hall, the Deputy Director and General Counsel for the Kansas Association of Counties.
Sure.
And I will visit with you, if we go to the next slide, I will visit with you about some of our priorities and then what the future holds for Kansas County. So if I could have the next slide. One of the things we're looking at is we've had a bill the last couple of sessions that just hasn't made it across the finish line. This bill was put forth by the County Treasurers Association, and it would essentially put a flat fee for the counties on your vehicle registration. So rather than having all of these numerous fees, like a facility fee and all of these other fees that you would see on there, the county would just receive a $10 fee. And the purpose of that is, one, to simplify the bill, but also along with that, it actually would result in a decrease or an average decrease of about $2.36 on your vehicle registration. It would also enhance some efficiency within the office, and it would help cover the costs of the vehicle registration process. Right now, vehicle registration is a state mandated service, obviously, that the counties must provide. And if there is a shortfall in the cost of vehicle registration services, then the county general fund has to make up that cost. And as we know, if the county general fund has to make up that cost, that means local property taxes go up. And so with this flat fee, we're hoping to both save the taxpayer some money on their overall fees, as well as avoid raising local property taxes by having to cover shortfalls in the vehicle registration plan. Next slide. We also, last session, it was approved for funding for both emergency medical services and community corrections, and it's a priority to maintain that funding because, again, these are ongoing costs. And if that funding isn't maintained at the state level, then obviously, again, that hits the local property taxes, and those property taxes would go up because that is the only way that counties are able to provide those services, is by having those dollars either come from the state or we have to raise those dollars locally. Next slide. Always a priority for local government is local control. And local control is important because every county is different. I tell the story. I grew up in Wyandotte County. I now live in Shawnee County. Those two counties are roughly the same size in population. But if you talk to anybody from Wyandotte or Shawnee County, they will assure you, and having lived in both places, you can be assured those two counties are very, very, very different. And so local control matters because what works in Johnson County, Kansas doesn't necessarily work in Johnson City, Kansas. And so we need to make sure that we have local control so that local leaders can be sure that the things that are put forth locally work for their communities. And that's why we emphasize local control. I'd also note that the thing with being a county commissioner is that if a citizen has a problem, they probably can find their county commissioner fairly easily because their county commissioners live in the community. And not only do they live in the community, in a lot of communities, if a citizen wants to talk to their county commissioner, they might be driving down the road and say, "Oh, there's his truck right there over at the gas station right now. I think I'll visit with him right now." And so there really is a lot of accountability locally because as a local official, you live right there in the community. You work right there in the community. You can't avoid your constituents because they live down the street from you. They go to the same high school basketball games and the same community events. So you cannot get away from your constituents because you are a part of their community and they are a part of your community. Next slide. Broadband expansion is also very important for our counties because obviously all of our counties, in order to grow both in terms of population and also in terms of economic development, broadband is very important. You can't run a business or anything like that if you don't have an internet connection at this point in history. And so broadband is something that's important both for our communities as far as the families and the population that lives there, but also in terms of economic and business development. Next slide. As I mentioned before with some of the other things, limiting the state mandates because mandates always come with a cost. If we're tasked with doing something from the state level, obviously it is the local government's responsibility to follow the law. However, that comes with a cost, and we all are concerned with making sure that we limit the amount of local property tax that we have to generate in order to meet those requirements under the law. And so limiting state mandates as much as possible is part of that so that we avoid things that add to the cost locally for our counties. Next slide. And then finally, we'll just look at the future very quickly and talk about a couple of things that are coming in the future. Next slide. And the first one is rising costs. Over the last year or so, we've seen cost increases in just about everything. And just remember, counties are market participant in all of these things just as much as everybody else. So when gas went up last summer, counties experienced that just the same as everyone else did. And it costs more for us to grade roads because we had to pay for gas for our road graders. It costs more for our sheriff's deputies to patrol because gas had gone up. And so we pay those same costs just the same as every other family. And so we experience those costs just the same. Next slide. These three I put on the same slide because all three of these issues, childcare, mental health, and housing, they affect every single community throughout our state. Childcare, we have to have affordable and available childcare because that is an economic development issue. You can't go to work if you don't have somewhere that you have determined is safe to send your children while you are at work. In the same way, mental health is actually an economic development issue because someone that is not able to handle their mental health issues, whether that be depression or anxiety or more serious mental health issues, they might not be able to maintain a steady job while they are dealing with those issues. And so being able to diagnose and treat those issues, and as much as possible, treat those issues within the community so that those people can maintain their relationships in the community is something that's very important to our counties. And then housing, obviously. You can't live in a community if you don't have available and affordable housing. And so each of our counties is looking at ways to make sure that they have affordable housing available to the people that live in those communities, so that we can continue to thrive in those communities. Next slide. Aging infrastructure, and this one is something that we see throughout the state. If you live just about anywhere, we've got, as it was said, responsibility for about 80% of the highway miles, about 75% of the bridges. And we all know that older things cost more to take care of. And so as we see our infrastructure aging, not just with roads and bridges, but also with buildings, the cost of maintaining those things goes up. But it continues to be the county's responsibility to maintain those things. And so that is something that we look at into the future, because we have a lot of things that we have deferred maintenance on. And as the state, you understand that when you defer maintenance, it doesn't get cheaper the longer you defer the maintenance. It actually starts getting more and more expensive. And so that's something that we also deal with at the county level. Next slide. And then wind and solar energy. This has been a topic that obviously you've dealt with here at the state level. Some communities want more wind and solar projects in their communities, and we understand that at KAC. Other communities do not want more wind and solar projects, or do not want any wind and solar projects in their communities, and we understand that as well. That's why we feel this is a local control issue, but it's something that's important to our members, because some places say, we want as many of these projects as possible. Other places say, we don't want any of these projects. And it's important to maintain the local control so that those communities can pick which one they want, whether they want more or none at all. Next slide. And then the final thing I wanted to bring up is just tax exemptions. We have a lot of tax exemptions that are out there. And I'm not trying to cite to any particular exemption, but we just want to make sure that those exemptions are serving the purpose for which those exemptions were given. If an exemption was given for a specific purpose, we want to make sure it's serving that purpose, because if it's not serving that purpose, then we want to look at whether or not that exemption should continue. That's really what we're looking at, just broadly. And those are our final issues. So if you have any questions at this time, feel free to ask myself or Bruce. Otherwise, I think that concludes our presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. I will ask the body if there's any questions for Jay at this time. Yes, Representative Bucks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How many counties in Kansas have a countywide tax? Do you recall that?
I believe it is about 80, but I'd have to check for the actual number to be sure.
And I say that because most of the exemptions we give, and we certainly need an overhaul of our exemptions. We need to look at that big time. But normally when the state will do an exemption, it doesn't impact the local, either county or city. Am I correct in that?
It depends. So last year when we did the food sales tax reduction, for example, that will take the state tax on food to zero, but it doesn't affect local taxes. On the other hand, if something is tax exempt, it's exempt from, it usually is exempt from all of the taxes. So it just depends on how the tax is set up in the system as to whether or not it affects local taxes or not.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think we'll segue into another opportunity we have. These folks lobby in behalf of the counties, and there's others that lobby in behalf of cities. And there's individual groups that have lobbyists that are regulars in this meeting because of their specific interest for either a municipality or for another interest group. And I would like to give brief opportunity, if you all have time, to allow other lobbyists that are here or other interest folks to be able to come and introduce who they are and what their interest is. So if you would take the opportunity to come to the microphone, that'd be great. Anyone that really wants to.
Mike Taylor, and I spent many years lobbying for the city of Wichita, many years lobbying for what the Unified Government, Wyandotte County, Kansas City. I've retired, but didn't want to quit working, so I have my own firm. So I'm representing right now the Kansas County Commissioners Association. So I work very closely with Bruce and with Jay and county officials from all of those counties on their issues. I'm actually representing the elected officials, just like you're elected. I represent the elected officials from all of those counties. So I appreciate the opportunity and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
You'll hear plenty from me next week. I'm Spencer Duncan, representing the League of Kansas Municipalities. This is actually my 20th legislative session, but my first with the League. Prior to this, I had a lobbying group, Capital Connection, represented a lot of different groups across the state, and decided to consolidate to the League. So you'll hear plenty from me, and I will also tell you, I am also an elected official as I serve on the city council here in Topeka. So I have a vested interest in both ends of it, and sometimes I really do feel your pain just on a little different level. So glad to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan.
Thank you, Chairman. Nathaniel Blank with Watkins Public Strategies, and we represent Sedgwick County government. Probably won't be hearing from me, but you will hear from Jason Watkins or Jessica Lucas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Brandon Fenton. My counterpart, Mark Toom, is not here today, but we represent the Kansas Association of Realtors. So buyers and seller agents that comprise everything from residential, commercial, agricultural property transaction. We represent their interests.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman, committee, Brad Ralph. I'm a contract lobbyist with Capital Strategies, and this is my first year in this particular position. Spent the last 6 years sitting in one of your chairs. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Stephen Durst. I'm a contract lobbyist on behalf of the Federico Durst Consulting Group. We provide advocacy services for Johnson County government, as well as the city of Lenexa, the city of Lindsborg. We also provide monitoring services for a number of entities, including the Unified Government and the Kansas Association of Counties, not advocacy, but again, monitoring services for those clients. So appreciate the opportunity.
Good morning, committee. I'm the law clerk with Federico Durst, and I wanted to say hello because I'm a former city commissioner in Pittsburgh, Kansas as well.
Thank you.
Committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Joshua Swati. I'm here. My wife, Kimberly, was actually here earlier this morning. We have Ginter Swati Public Affairs. We represent REAP, which is the Regional Economic Area Partnership of South Central Kansas. We represent the Kansas Municipal Utilities, which are all the municipally owned utility wastewater and electric and natural gas systems in the state. But then we also represent the Advanced Power Alliance and several wind and solar developers who, as was mentioned earlier, interact quite closely with the counties.
Thank all you folks for coming to the mic, and would just ask if the body has any other comments for the good of the committee. Not seeing anything, we will be adjourned until next Wednesday, when we will hear from the Kansas League of Municipalities.